You're on.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome, all guests. We are on YouTube. Excellent, and we are recording live. So welcome to the September meeting of the RASC Kingston Center. I hope everybody had a great summer. First, I'd like to have our land acknowledgement that Queen's University is situated on the territory of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabeg Nations, and we respect the land that we meet on. Here are our announcements. We have new members to the Kingston Center: John Chesney, Bob Lyons, and Taylor Levert. Yay, welcome to the Kingston Center. Hopefully they made it online. Great, hi. You get the email? Yes. Awesome. Okay, Wednesday social Zoom time will be sent out to the email center chat list. If you'd like to get on to the Zoom chat, send an email to kingston@rasc.ca or else sign up to the email list and you'll get that invite. Fallen Stars is this weekend, September 15th to the 17th, and I think we're up to 30 people that's going to be coming. And we are going to have good weather, despite what Malcolm says. We are going to have good weather. Also this weekend, Queen's University is open, has their open house from 7:30 to 10 p.m. We're looking for volunteers because most of our people that go there are going to be at Fallen Stars this year. And there is a telescope on site if you want to pull it out onto the deck and be able to help out there. Also, October 14th, I'm sure Rick will be talking about this later. Queen's University is going to be holding a daytime event for the partial solar eclipse. And I've handed out solar eclipse viewers to everybody so they can hand them out to their friends and relatives. And you can use it for the partial as well as for the total next year.
How many?
How many what? Five per person?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, we also have a new library book, which is the total solar eclipse of the April 8th, 2024. So you can make your plans of what you want to do. Rick Wagner is already wanting to sign it out. So Rick can have it for a month, then it's got to come back, and then it can be signed out again.
I think if anybody else wants it, they should arm wrestle for it.
Yeah. Okay. And let us go on here. Upcoming election. Yes, sir.
Introductions?
Pardon?
Introductions.
Introductions. Oh, yes. Okay. I am President Kim Hay of the RASC. Our treasurer, Susan Gagnon, is over there looking after our people on YouTube. John Hurley is our National Council rep. Rick Wagner is our past president. Elena Zanetti is our secretary. Kevin Kell is our equipment loan and webmaster and whatever other jobs need to get done. So welcome, one and all. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to come up and ask us. And we'll be glad to help you out. Now, important, this is coming up in November 8th. We are having elections this year. There are 3 positions that are open. One is the president, one is vice president, and one is treasurer. I will not be running as president this year, so that is open. So if you would like to help your center, come on up. There's also other positions that are in the executive that need filling as well. Since we don't have that many volunteers, a lot of our executive have been doing those jobs. Michael has graciously taken over looking after our social convening of our dinners. And tonight's went well, I believe. Thank you. And so these are the terms of office as well as the duties of the president, the vice president, and duties of the treasurer. These can be found in our current bylaws, which will be updated next year, for next year. These are current as of, excuse me, the 2006 bylaws. Okay, now that's all the announcements that I have. So what we're going to do now is have David Levy kick off our meeting with a poem.
Well, thank you very, very much. And it's wonderful to be here. In the fall of 1965, I was entering 11th grade in Montreal at Westmount High School. And we were told to read a book, any book, and write a book report on it. Miss Williamson at the center had said that there was this new book out that was in the center's library. And she wanted one of the younger members, i.e. me, to read it first. And so I took it out and I said, well, I'll read a chapter a day, and then I'll do the book report at the end of the month. I brought it home and I'm lying in bed and I thought, well, I'll read the chapter now. I read through one sentence of it and I was hooked. I could not put it down. It was called Starlight Nights, The Adventures of a Stargazer. And the book was poetry. It was wonderful. And as I told my dad years later, lots of books tell you how to look at the stars. This one tells you why. And I would like to do a quotation of the book, which I think is the two most seminal paragraphs of the entire book. Leslie loved variable stars. He said that variable star isn't just there, it's happening. And he certainly loved comets, and he discovered 12 of them in his lifetime. And near the end of the book, he writes this. Time has not lessened the age-old allure of the comets. In some ways, their mystery has only deepened with the years. At each return, a comet brings with it the questions which were asked when it was here before, and as it rounds the sun and backs away toward the long, slow night of its aphelion, it leaves behind with us those questions still unanswered. And then this next thing is so powerful because it connects to Halley's Comet, the most famous comet of all, which in just a few months from now is going to reach its aphelion in its orbit around the sun. To hunt a speck of moving haze may seem a strange pursuit, but even though we fail, the search is still rewarding. For in no better way can we come face to face, night after night, with such a wealth of riches as old Croesus of Egypt never dreamed of. Thank you very much, and back to you.
Hey, is Bruce Elliott online yet?
He is not.
Okay. All right, so next we'll move on to Roger. Are you able to give your talk now?
Sure, yeah, okay,
Okay, come on.
all right.
Okay, so Roger, you need a microphone, so I'm going to give you mine.
Actually, you
Okay.
should be able to use that one right there.
No,
No?
no. So plug this onto your shirt.
Thank you. Aha, okay.
Okay, can you get somebody, Mark?
Ooh, somebody.
So we can see how the audio is. I just switched it on our end.
Okay, and how's the audio now? The audio we're working? Coming through loud and clear? 10 by 10?
Loud and clear here.
Anybody from the audience? Malcolm, can you say something?
He's muted.
Anybody? Malcolm?
I said loud and clear.
Nope.
Can't
Okay,
hear
we
Malcolm.
lost our audio just a sec. Let me switch it back. Okay, try
I can hear it too.
Okay.
Okay, now okay, we heard Mark K, so we're good to go there. Okay. that was Share. And we're gonna be sharing here.
Okay,
Slide,
view, move over to view, slideshow.
okay,
So I will just ask for next.
how are we doing? Is that live? Yeah? Not yet,
Not yet.
okay. Can anybody online see this?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, this is our first time back after a few months, so we're all learning how to use computers again. Okay, Roger, go ahead and say next. with
I'd
your-
say next when I went. Okay, so around in late spring, I realized that I was having difficulty with my telescope and having it point around the sky, which was a little dismaying. I tried to go ahead and pull a line, and it would seem to be okay, but no matter what I tried, the results were never particularly good. So I was working away in the observatory one day, and I nudged against the telescope, something I don't like to do when I'm in there, and I noticed that it moved. So this is not good. So I got down and underneath the observatory, because I could do that, and tightened up the bolts that tied down the steel pier to the concrete post that's set deep into the ground, and went back up into the observatory again, hauled myself out from underneath, went up and pushed it, and it continued to move. And I thought, oh, this isn't good. So I removed a couple of boards inside the observatory, looked down at the ground, pushed the telescope, and I could see the concrete pier moving. At that point, I realized I really had a major problem. So in trying to judge what I've got, the slide here shows you the situation that as it was. The pier was went about just over 4 feet into the ground. The concrete did. It passed through a few inches of loam, a fair bit of sand, and finally through a bit of clay at the bottom. And I had no idea why it should move. I had a farmer come over and use his 12-inch diameter backhoe thing so that he could, punch a hole right through. And I put the sonotube in and filled it up full of concrete, perfect fit. And I thought everything was absolutely fantastic. But next. Over time, the unfortunate thing is that sonotube gets wet. When it freezes, it expands. And since it can't crush the concrete, it's going to go ahead and push out into the sand. And that's exactly what it does. Next, please. And when it dries, there's a gap. And the longer you leave it, the bigger the gap gets. And so at this point, I realized, I had a major issue. Next, please, Kevin. And can you play that video, please? Oh, right. You can actually see the concrete. I took this a couple of days ago when I was getting ready for this, because now everything's out of the way, and the solution that I was looking at has now been implemented. Okay, next, please.
Let's see that again.
Yeah, it's so entertaining, isn't it? It's really kind of frightening when you've got.
You need to play this during Halloween for astronomers.
yeah. You've got a couple of 100 pounds of equipment at the top of this steel pier that on a fixed income I'm never going to be able to replace, and but it was never going to go anywhere or fall down. But it just meant essentially that the telescope was pretty close to being useless. So, how do you go ahead and fix this? Well, I'm lazy, right? I would much rather think this through and do the least amount of work that it was possible to do to go ahead and fix the problem. So, the easiest thing to me seemed to be, I'm going to put a slab of concrete on the ground, raise it up a couple of inches above the top of the current piece of concrete that sticks out of the ground. Put new bolts, because I kind of like through it, and tie the steel pier down to it, and that should stop it from rocking backwards and forwards. However, this would mean I'd actually have to move the entire observatory out of the way while I'm doing this, which means taking everything out of the observatory and putting it someplace, possibly up in the house, who knows where, and it was going to be a pain. There was no doubt it was going to be a pain, but very little digging. And at the end of it, there was no guarantee that it would work. And I'm about to ask Kevin to go.
What next?
Yes, please. Okay. Solution number 2 was to put a concrete pad below the frost line. I was going to dig you can read the metric equivalent, a 4 foot by 4 foot by 4.5 foot deep hole, and fill the bottom with the cheapest concrete that I can find. And I want to extend a concrete pier about 1 meter above the ground. And so I wanted to be all concrete all the way up. I don't want to have to get underneath the observatory again to go ahead and tighten down bolts should they become loose for whatever reason. But this is 2 cubic meters. I mean, that's a big hole. But the guy next door, right, he has an excavator. And it's also a lot of concrete, like 40 bags worth of concrete. But my truck will take that in 2 loads, right? It's not one. It was going to take 2 loads, but that's okay. You know, Brockville's not that far away. This, however, you know, it would work. And because I'm digging a hole outside of the current confines of where the observatory is, everything can be left in there while I do this. And that was a really big thing. So, so next, please. Okay. Solution number 3 was to take the hole I'd got and just fill the damn thing full of concrete. In other words, get a small load from a cement company and just fill it in. You know, it's a lot of concrete, but I don't have to mix it. It will work. You know, everything will be absolutely rock solid. It'll be about 10,000 pounds of concrete, and would make Malcolm very happy because then I can use a tripod. There were discussions about that.
Now, this
So
is
I
my
went-
Zoom meeting. Okay. This is the Royal Astronomical Society.
So, so I called up a couple of places, and one guy actually replies, and he said, but there was no guarantee of delivery, just sometime before the snow flies. And my observatory at this point had been out of commission for 2 months. I was not going to go ahead and let it go much beyond that. Next, please. So, solution number 2 it is. Next.
There
Sorry.
you go. Yep, to say
My-
the word.
Yeah, absolutely correct. Yes, fair enough. So I started with a 4 foot by 4 foot section of sod, which is about 20 feet north of the original location. And I had to do it because, unbeknownst to me, the guy next door with the excavator went on vacation. However, okay, the cardiac recovery unit at Brockville General Hospital was not going to be too happy with me, I thought, because I'm now going to have to dig this thing by hand. Next, please. So by the end of the day, I had a 4 foot by 4 foot by 2 foot hole in there. The nice thing was that after the loam, I got nicely into the sand, and then it was very easy going. The other great thing about this, no rocks, which for where I was absolutely astonishing. Next, please. So then came the following day, and I used a sunshade because it was really hot. It was extremely hot at the beginning of August. The sun was blazing down, and I had to have a hat because otherwise layers of skin would be coming off my head. And so I put up the sunshade, and then I could go ahead and dig, and unencumbered by shirt or hat, and kept on digging. The final foot, however, that I did was clay, much more difficult to dig through, and right at the interface between the sand and the clay, I pulled out about a 7 or 8 inch long, extremely rusted, square-headed steel bolt. And so I have no idea what it is. It was the only thing of any significance that came out of the hole, apart from a large number of frogs. Okay, next, please. So on August the 2nd, concrete gets poured. And so I'd gone to Home Depot, got 40 bags of concrete. I got 28 bags of the cheapest concrete I could get, and that was going to be for the pad in the bottom of the hole. And I got 12 bags of the high compression PSI stuff, very nice concrete, and very, very strong. I got a pile of rebar, and I got one of these Bigfoot mounts to go ahead and put it in there. A couple of friends came over to give me a hand. Well, 3 friends came over, Mark Hay being one of them, and thanks very much for that. And a very old and dear friend of mine who's an engineer, aircraft engineer, but was intensely interested by what I was trying to do. And in some ways, the tolerances that are involved in astronomy. So the sunshade went up again, and away we went. Next, please. So then there you can see in there that there's the rebar cage that's coming up. There's 4 legs of it coming up, and those legs extend out to the corners of the hole, and thus are thoroughly embedded in the foot-thick layer of concrete that's in there. And then we kind of, after we had about 8 inches of concrete in there, we dropped into Bigfoot, and then filled that up. There you can see me going ahead and fixing sonotube, because you can't buy 8-foot sections of sonotube from Home Depot. You have to buy 4-foot sections and then another one to go ahead and tie the thing together. So when I tried to go ahead and do it, I couldn't. It turns out that when you have 12-inch sonotube, there are actually 3 different sizes. And so it looks like there's sort of like 11.5, 12, and 12.5-inch diameters. And I got 2 12.5s and an 11.5. And I used, unfortunately, I cut up the 12.5 to go ahead and make the join, not realizing, and I couldn't figure out why I couldn't tie these things together. So off back to Home Depot, complain like hell, and they didn't do anything for me. So it's why you can see sonotube littered all over the place that's there. And it was also then I found, because I had to put a tarp over the hole, and I used one of the pieces of sonotube to keep the rain out of the hole while I went ahead and did that. Well, that sonotube got wet and does exactly what sonotube did. It collapsed. So while Mark was there, I put the sonotube together, did the final measurements, got it all set up. You take a piece of sonotube out, you rip a piece along the big edge, and you fold it over, you tie it together with a couple of tie down straps, and then you put a bunch of screws into it and hold it together. And that apparently, according to them, should work, but it's only guaranteed for about 4 foot above grade before it will not work anymore, because the concrete will burst through it. Members of the Hamilton Center have actually seen this principle in action when we went ahead and did this in about 1980 or so to go ahead and build the outriggers for our roll-off roof building. And concrete was put in on the Saturday afternoon, and when they came back on the Sunday morning, they were all lying on the ground. And so you get above grade sonotube, but Home Depot doesn't sell that. Anyway, next, please. So now you can see the sonotube has now been fitted onto the top of the Bigfoot, and we're almost ready to go to start pouring concrete down there, and then Mark does all of his special magic. Next, please. And make sure that every load of concrete that gets poured down that sonotube is thoroughly mixed with the layer before it. And he did a spectacularly brilliant job. So good was he at doing this that nobody else who was there felt that we could hold a candle to the brilliant job that he was doing. He was born to do this job, and we were very happy to let him do it.
Did he vibrate?
Well, I wanted to get one of these concrete vibrator snake things, and they had them at Home Depot. And I went, oh, I want to play with these things, because I'd seen. However, unfortunately, you've got to be really careful with them, because if you're not, the concrete will all separate when it does it. All the stones and things like that will go right down to the bottom, and you're left with cement at the top, and that's not what you want. So you have to be really careful with it. And my aeronautical engineer friend said, you really don't want this. It'll weaken it. It won't be as good. Ditch the snake so you're not tempted to use it. So this left Mark with arms that will probably have yet to recover.
Roger, can I ask a question quickly?
Sure you can.
Are you was the procedure here, you brought the wheelbarrow over full of cement and then shoveled it into the hole?
Correct.
Wow.
So we mixed up 2 bags of cement mixed with a measured amount of water, and that went into the cement mixer, and then at that point it was tipped into a wheelbarrow, and over we go, because we've got to then pour it down the tube. Now it's very easy to go ahead and tip it down the hole when where it's going is below you. You can't do that when it's above you. But a concrete pier is a thing of beauty, and I really like it rather than a steel pier. So yes.
Well, I guess it is home, which is on the
Okay,
same.
so you've ditched the steel pier then. That's the main difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I now have a spare steel pier. So and during this time, the sunshade was destroyed by a high wind that came along, and is of no further use. But fortunately, it didn't need it anymore. So it did its job and then died a death, and now resides in the landfill of Edwardsburg Cardinals dump. So one of the other things that you will notice. Next slide, please. Okay, so that was what it was at the end of the day. I quickly had to go ahead and take the cement mixer back to Home Depot because I had a play to attend on the Wednesday evening. Next, please. So I got home after the play, and sure enough, the concrete had really started to set, and it was still upright, which was a wonderful thing. One of the things that you'll notice about this was to make sure that the concrete did not burst out of its tube, because we're now exceeding what the concrete company says you should use their builder's tube for. We actually had to put splints around it. So we did 3 splints around it, 120 degrees apart-ish, and then strap them together with some really nice tear-down straps, and essentially put splints around it to make sure to strengthen it so it doesn't burst through. Now, whether it would have done or not, I have no idea whether they actually worked or not, but the thing is still upright, right? The day later, and so it's fantastic. Next, please. And it's then that I find out that, that this thing is a magnet for frogs. That every day I go out there and check on it, the place is there's 4 or 5 frogs that are in there. So my wife and I went camping in Quebec for a few days with some friends, and there were a number of dead frogs in the bottom when we got home, and a couple of very sick ones. But the frog population was increasing every night. But the pier was still massively upright. What you'll notice also in the top of the pier is a 1/2-inch stainless steel bolt that was hideously difficult to go ahead and bend, but I managed to put, I won't say a J in it, it was more like an L, and even then it's, and managed to get that into the concrete, and like it's not moving. The problem was that the top of the pier was not that great, and at the top of the pier is going to go a slab of aluminum, inch thick, 9 by 9, so that I could go ahead and bolt the telescope to it. And of course, having gone ahead and done this, somebody says, well, you know that concrete and aluminum don't mix, that as soon as you put the concrete and the aluminum together, the aluminum will start to corrode within minutes. So this is not good. So what do I do? Okay, so I can paint this, and some people may remember some of the conversations that went on around that. And I said, well, I'm not quite sure that the top of this is perfectly level. What would be really nice would be to pour liquid on top and have it harden. And a friend of mine suggested, well, have you done any body work on a car? I said, no. He said, do you happen to have any fiberglass resin around? I said, yes. Why? A project I never got around to. So he said, mix it up, pour it on top, and it will spread. And of course, it will do exactly like any liquid does, and it will go perfectly level. And I like that because that's easy. And I'm all about easy, despite having dug this massive hole. So I before I took the sonotube off, I put a nice little dam around there of some caulking, poured the stuff in, waited a day, and it worked. Next, please. So it's pretty damn close to level. Certainly as good as I'm going to get. And the telescope, it's got 2 degrees of freedom in there, move it in altitude and azimuth, and then I can still, almost no matter what, make it parallel to the Earth's axis of rotation. And then, of course, I had to get rid of the sonotube, and that turned out to be a much bigger job than I thought, because, of course, the sonotube got wet from the concrete, which meant that when it dried, it stuck to the concrete. So out came the pressure washer, and so I pressure washered it, got rid of it, and filled in the hole, and that's the thing sticking out of the hole. And I thought, am I going to paint it? Am I going to do what to hide this? And I thought, no, it'll be in the dark. I'll never really see this again. I don't care at this point. The problem was not all but 3 of the 30 odd screws that I used to screw the 2 pieces, the joining pieces of sonotube together. All but 3 of them came out cleanly. Sorry, only 3 came out cleanly. So out came the angle grinder to go ahead and remove the screws that are there. So there's some burn marks that you can see in there of burnt metal, and sparks were flying everywhere. Anyway, so that all worked out really nicely, filled in the hole, and so I still got some soil left over, but that's okay. I can figure out something to do with dirt. Next, please. Kevin.
Just a quick comment.
Yeah.
The last 10 slides, I've been trying not to ask the question, but Roger, you're using sonotube again.
I know.
This
I
is
know.
what caused the first problem.
This is what caused the problem in the first place. And now I'm taking the sonotube out, and this will stop it from doing that. So in 2 days, I had to take all the cameras. So now it's time to take the observatory apart. So all the cameras had to be removed, and they were stored in camera bags. The telescopes were removed, multiple telescopes, and stored in totes or modified toolboxes, because they're fantastic. Again, Home Depot, you can get them to close up nicely. The carrying, typically the styrofoam that's used, to hold your telescope when it arrives from wherever country it's made, typically China, fits nicely into a toolbox, and they're fantastic. So I removed the mount, right? Off comes the mount. The head of the mount is something like 60 pounds. There's 3 10-kilogram counterweights, and then there's a shaft for that as well. So it's a huge amount of weight. Then I took all of the computers, the cables, power supplies, everything else that was needed, and that was removed. And I had an old Kendrick observatory tent, and I thought that's really appropriate. And it is waterproof, and it's got a really nice sunshade on there, so stuff is not going to boil. And then I took my Skyshed pod apart, and then removed all the decks. Forwards. Next, please. So now the image that you see on the left is the deck that's now being put over the new concrete pier. I actually had to remove the not the outside ones, but the next 2 in on each side, because it was way too much to go ahead and do. And I was not going to take the thing completely apart and rebuild it, because I'd much rather have somebody else go and do that. Everything was all nice and square at the moment, and I wanted to make sure it remained that way. So I raised it up on the blocks to make sure I can get underneath it to go ahead and feed all the electricity through. And I then took the power washer, because that deck looks pretty ugly. And so I power washed everything. I power washed the Skyshed pod again, get it all nice and clean inside and out. Years worth of spider webs came out, and then I put it on top of the deck, and there you see it when it's all being finished. Stairs are all nice and done, and it's beautifully level. Next, please. So then it comes time to say, how good is this? Because I'd never been actually able to do 2 polar alignments in a row and have them be successful, I had to give it a try to find out just how good is this. So I had 1 piece of software that got me to within about half a minute of arc from being parallel with the Earth's axis, and I thought, oh, that's really good, like 30 arc seconds off. And then I said, well, I wonder what Nina says. And so Nina checks it all out. Ran it at night, and it goes ahead and has the telescope point at 3 different spots near the pole. And as it goes around, it says, aha, you must, since I plate solved this image and this image and this image, you must be this far off, because I know how far your mount has moved. And it said that that's when it told me, I was 7 seconds of arc off in azimuth, and 26 seconds of arc off in altitude. And I went, that's fantastic. That is brilliant, from something that PhD 2 was telling me, you need to improve your polar alignment, Roger. You're more than 5 arc minutes off. And I can get it down to like less than half an arc minute. And then I went, I wonder how far I can push this, right? Because And I was really worried, do I or do I not push this? Because if I push it, maybe it's not real. So I turned everything off and I turned everything back on again, and I redid it. And I got to within 1 second of arc, 1/3600th part of a degree. And it has, the following night, I checked it again, it's the same. I get the exact same numbers. So I went outside the observatory, danced a happy little jig, and came in. And the other picture you see there is of the telescope now, all put back together in the observatory. There's the 3 giant counterweights, the CEM 120. There's my Meade 12-inch telescope, a 6-inch RC, an 80mm triplet, and the guide scope that's on there, and various cameras. And it looks a lot tidier. And now I can actually, because I think I've got to move the observatory now a couple of inches. I thought I got it all beautifully worked out until the other day when the telescope was moving from one part of the sky to the other, and it hit the observatory wall and squealed like a pig, and which is not a good sound that you want your mount to make. It stops, shuts itself off, and so I'm going to move the observatory a few inches yet, and then I can well and truly bolt it down. And when I do that and reroute all the wires underneath, I'm actually going to lower the observatory down by about another 8 to 10 inches, whatever the width of one of those concrete breeze blocks is. And then I'll be done. And with a bit of luck, that final stuff should happen next week.
Before the snow flies.
Before the snow flies. So yes, otherwise I'd have had to go through all this after the snow flies. So that's the tale of what happens. Next image. So what have I learned? Number 1, don't leave sonotube in the ground, right? Number 1. And somebody, I'm not sure whether it was in Hamilton or some delightful person from the Kingston Center, sent me off to a place on cloudy nights where a civil engineer talks about all of this stuff. And he says, don't leave sonotube in the ground. It's almost an article of faith in this part of the world. However, the people say, well, no, of course you leave that, because when the frost tries to push up on it, it's gone ahead and it will slide up the sonotube. Well, it doesn't. Okay, so common wisdom is wrong as far as that's concerned. There may be the old wax-coated stuff that you were able to get, which I had used back in Milton about 20 odd years ago, but that's not the stuff you can get anymore. And so it's what caused the issue in the first place, was by accepting common wisdom being wrong. Second of all, the concrete should always be in contact with undisturbed soil. So if you dig a hole, you can scrape the sides clean, but that sides of that hole, you don't fill it in with something and then put concrete in it. Concrete should be attached, if you like, to undisturbed soil, and then it won't move. Another thing I can say is overbuild, right? It just might be that you can't use too much concrete. I still would have really liked that, like 2 cubic meters of concrete to gone into ground, so like 6,000 pounds of concrete, and that would have been something that I could boast about. However, the second of all, when it comes to this, really, there's no substitute for mass. The more mass you have, the more difficult it's going to be to move, and really, you don't really want anything to go ahead and move. And the last thing is, if you can't find the time to do it right, how are you going to find the time to do it over? I think you don't follow these diktats, if you like, at your peril. You may have to go ahead and do it. And last of all, friends are amazing, and they will come on over, particularly if they're really curious about what you're doing, and give you a hand so they can have a part in it. So when I showed these rather gaudy numbers as far as my polar alignment goes to my friends, and I said, 1/3600th part of a degree difference in parallel between my polar axis and the one that the Earth uses. They found that was really quite impressive. Anyway, so that's what I did on my summer vacation. Thank you. Should I ask for any questions? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Tom Sawyer, right?
the audience. Anybody gonna be doing this next summer? That's great.
Are you running power that's from
Yes,
house out to it?
yes, yes.
So you just have to extend the power from where you had it in the old location?
Yeah, it doesn't quite reach. I'm actually on the St. Lawrence River, and there is 240 volts to the right beside the dock where there's a transformer, and so it runs 240 volts down to there. If I tried to run 120, I'd have too big of a voltage drop. So said my engineer friend, and that's where he parks his boat, and that's where he's got a hydraulic boat lift, and he wanted the power to be able to do it. So we ran 240 volts to it. The unfortunate thing was the previous owner of my house had run 240 volts down there and put 120 volt plugs in it. So when I plugged in my shop vac to go ahead and vacuum some dirt out of the original hole that I had dug, the shop vac blew up, and I had no idea why. Damn, it's an old shop vac, what the hell. So I go off to Home Hardware, just a mile or two away, and got another one, and it did exactly the same thing. And so I sent it back and said, what are the chances of me getting like a bad one? So what the hell, and so I went back to Home Hardware and said, this has happened. Okay, this is an actual honest to God shop vac. Like, they built these things. They're built like tanks. How the hell did this happen? But no matter, it did have another one. So I plugged that one in, and it starts making strange noise, and unplugged it. And then it dawned on me, could it be? No, so it couldn't be that stupid to go ahead and do it. But the previous occupant of the house was indeed that stupid. And so I dropped it down to 120, and then my friend, one of the concrete pourers, wanted to put his boat down there, said we should run it down to run 240 down there, and I'll buy a transformer, and then we can. So now I need about 15 foot of extra cable. But that's going to be done next week as well. And the fortunate thing is the Ethernet cable that I ran down there since it's not 15, 20 feet further away from the house, it's 20 feet closer, is that I actually had to hand dig the trench, because the last thing I want to do is cut the Ethernet cable. I'm colorblind. I need somebody else to tell me what all of these little colored wires are inside an Ethernet cable before I can attach the end on it. And I didn't want to do that. Anyway, so there you go. Anything else? Oh, okay.
Anybody have any questions online? Thank you, Roger. Wow.
Oh,
Muscular now, huh? You're a muscle man now, right?
Actually, yeah, the cardiac clinic was actually quite happy.
Good. Okay. Next up, we have Bruce Elliott. Are you ready to give your presentation?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have a little a short presentation that I could just put on to the I'll share.
Yep.
Are you seeing something?
Yes, we can see a slide editing view.
Okay.
So 3 slides down the left-hand side and your main picture on the right-hand side.
Yeah. There we go. Is that visible?
Now we're
Excellent.
seeing the same thing. You're the editor's view with the slides down the left and your
Yeah.
single slide on the right.
Okay.
I mean, that works. We can see that. I think everybody in the audience can see that. Okay. You want to go with that?
Yeah. Can you see that?
Yes.
Full screen, single image. Yes.
Excellent. Okay. So, yeah, I just wanted to share with you exciting week we had just before school started. And so we were at Snug Harbor, which is on Desert Lake. And so we had a group of young kids who were really excited about what's up in the sky. So we so on this first night, we had a picture of the moon and Saturn, and and so this was the week of the full blue moon. So on the 30th, the moon was really quite nice and clear in the sky, a little bit of haze, and it was in conjunction with Saturn. So that was really exciting. So again, all along the kids are wondering, how this all works and so on. So one of the kids actually had success taking some pictures with a cell phone, which I thought I'd share here. And this is over on the right. This is me with my grandson. So this is here. That's this is on another night where it's in a slightly different position. Over on the right, this is Desert Lake in the background. We have the reflection of the moon in the water. So very nicely clear. So then discussion. So most people had heard about the term full blue moon, but weren't quite sure what it meant. And so of course there was a lot of discussion about what the different moons each month are even named. And they were quite excited about that. But focusing on the full blue moon, so there was some discussion about what is a blue moon, and it was interesting. The kids actually, the end, to sort of realize what was, so we went through some of the idea about the moon phase being a little bit longer than an Earth day, and so on. So that there's so there was some understanding of that, which I was thinking. But then it was really more than this year than just a full moon. So we talked about the idea that this moon actually was really quite a bit closer to our planet. So what does that mean? And so we had some discussion about it, and I had a picture actually earlier in the week, and on the day of the blue moon, the super blue moon, and it's there's a possibility that it actually, there's other conditions, why it's brighter here than over here. I mean, maybe a little less cloudy or whatever, but generally the moon came out quite a bit. You could sort of see that it was a little brighter, or quite a bit brighter than the earlier in the week when it was only 95%. And the size, of course, was also, I mean, obviously this is only 90, this is not full, but so we had some discussion around that we're at a point where we were at a point where the moon was closest to the Earth versus the apogee, which would be furthest away. And so then another picture like this helped to realize how the two were came out differently. So the big question was, well, how rare is a super blue moon? This is where some of the parents were kind of interested in. So I actually went on the internet. I came up with these two statements. One is the last time we had a blue supermoon was January 30th and 31st in 2018. And the next one's not going to be until 2037, apparently, the end of January. So that sort of underlines sort of the excitement of the experience of actually seeing it on a nice clear night. Well, then there was I told them that Venus would be rising in the morning. So actually I got a collection of people out about 4:30 in the morning to see the Venus rising, which was kind of neat. And then we saw Jupiter. There was four moons on Jupiter on this night. And again, I showed this image without telling them initially what it was, as you see. And then I popped up the Jupiter with 4 moons. Several of the kids guessed exactly what it was, and that was kind of neat. And one of the kids, his name is Wesley, and you can guess maybe why he was interested in Cassiopeia in the shape of a W. He was really excited about this, about 8 years old. And so I went out. I had to go out a couple of nights to get a clear night, and I got something that I think you can at least see. I hope you're able to see the appearance of W there. So we're getting. Wanted to say something about eclipses, and so the last lunar eclipse was actually also just before I go to that. So I asked them if they knew what eclipse was. So we actually got them to act it out. So with a couple of balls to indicate the different things, and the kids worked it out and could explain themselves finally what it was all about. This is a sequence of pictures that I took actually last May, also from Desert Lake, and this was a total eclipse. And I just thought I'd share it tonight. I may have shown it previously, but it's certainly in context here right now. And yeah, so then moving on. So what is a solar eclipse? Again, we acted that out, and I found a couple of pictures on the internet to show them, which I won't show you tonight. But we did talk about what the path is going to be, the path of totality. And this is, of course, on our website. I just took this off our RASC Kingston website. And so there was a lot of excitement about, several of the people are from Toronto. And noticed that Toronto was right on the border. And so Kingston is, I guess, a little bit more into it. But I was saying to them, well, it's probably a pretty good chance you're going to see it, but it might not perhaps last as long if it's just sort of right at the edge. But definitely, this clear day, it certainly be exciting. So, and of course, a reminder about safety glasses. And so then there's a picture of the group that some of the parents. This fellow here is the grandfather of some of the kids here, and this is the father, and I'm the father I'm the grandfather rather of our grandson, whom we're very proud of course. Yeah. So and then one of the parents asked me, why do we only see one side of the moon? So we actually had a bit of a discussion about that. And I'm not going to go through it all here, but it was interesting this was sort of a neat thing to sort of, I found this on the internet a little bit later. And so it has what I found was that the solar planetary material at the beginning of that creation, 2 billion years ago of the solar system, was all spinning sort of in the same direction. And then so the idea is that the planets continue to sort of spin that way. Venus maybe got hit by a big asteroid or something like that to make it spin the other direction. And of course, Uranus, the same, spins on its side. So it was interesting to have that kind of discussion. I just wanted to give you an idea of how the time worked and how we interacted. So that's what I wanted to share. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce. I'm sure the kids will remember that going forward.
Yeah.
Probably told their friends too.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, next up, we will have Rick Wagner.
Hear me?
Which one would you like first?
The notes slides, middle one. Leads.
Okay, go for it.
All right, and I can use the arrow keys here.
I think you can.
Okay, so V3124 Cygni. This is a variable star in Cygnus, and Cygni. It's the like 3500th star. They start with R Cygni, S Cygni, and so forth. They go through all the letters, all the double letters, and eventually they run out of letters, and then they start naming them with V and just a sequential number. So this is a high amplitude delta Scuti variable. So these are variables that are about twice the mass of the sun, and they pulsate because of the ionization and deionization of helium somewhere inside, deeper inside their atmosphere. And that causes the outer layers to pulsate. And of course, when it gets bigger and smaller, it is also getting hotter and cooler. And so the brightness varies. And you can see the middle star here. Right one in the center is V3124. Uh-oh, it's doing things. Nope. I
Try
can't.
again.
Nope. Nope. Nothing's happening.
Move, change.
We don't seem to be in slide mode or something.
Try F5. And now try an arrow.
There we go. Okay, so one of the nice things about HADs, high amplitude delta Scutis, is they pulsate very quickly, periods sort of a couple of hours. So even with my little slot of sky that's visible from the Boltwood scope, I can get more than a complete period in an evening. And that's exciting. I get bored with things that take more than a day. So the next couple of nights later, I take some more measurements, and it looks like a completely different light curve than the last one. So we know something's going on. Basically, what we assume in this case is that it's actually pulsating at two different frequencies at the same time. And if we take all my 4,000 observations and plot them, we basically combine them all together, shift them all so they're all plotted as what's called a phased curve. And what you can see is little fibers of observations through this big thick rope of all the red stuff down here is my check stars. So that's another star in the field that I measure just to make sure that I'm not comparing against another variable star. What the heck? Oh, a little blurb on Python. You guys know I'm a Python nut, Pythonista. So this is just an example of some of the interesting stuff you can do. You can import a library, like AstroPy has a table library, so we import it. Then we can just say, give me a directory of table, and it tells me all the functions and stuff that you can do with the table. You can do help on table, and it gives you about 2,000 or 3,000 lines of text all about it. This is a basically an interactive session here where you can just type in any Python command and run it, so you can see what commands do and so forth. So I mentioned that there's all these libraries that you can get from Python. And one of the interesting tools that I really like is called the Jupyter Notebook. And basically it's kind of like a an interactive session, except you do it in little blocks. And it has a lot of features. So for instance, we can name our spreadsheet or our notebook. We can save it. It tells us when we last saved it, that there are unsaved changes and so forth. And what I like about this is that as you put in all your commands, it gives you the results. And if you make a mistake, you just go back and type in the command again, and it'll give you the new results, and you can repeat that until it works. Then you can move on to the next statement. So it's kind of like just writing a computer program, except that at the end of every line, it gives you the results. And so you can see if things are going. You can look at the data. How is it working? You know, am I getting stuff that looks reasonable? We can put down what's called markdown. So you put in text. The 3 pounds here tells it that this is a title. Uh-oh.
Your Python is broken.
No, it's.
Oh, we're locked
Oh,
up.
there we
There
are.
we go.
Okay. All right. So you hit Shift Enter, and it actually runs the little code. So in this case, it just puts in my title. Then I have to put in, I mentioned libraries. Import the light curve library. Pyriad is a program. So light curve is the one that's going to do all the detailed analysis for us of the light curve. Pyriad, basically, whenever people write Python code, they use py instead of pe or whatever. So that's the one that's going to give us all the displays. Table is going to allow us to import the data and automatically divide it all into columns and rows and units and stuff. That's also here, AstroPy units. So you can do cool things with units. So define a name for our data file. Say table.read the data file and tell it to print it out. And there you can see there's the first few lines of our data table. All it is some truncated heliocentric Julian dates of the middle of the observation of each image, and the basically the brightness of the star at that instant. And basically when you ask for it, what it does is it gives you the first dozen or so and then the last dozen, so you can see that everything looks reasonable. The next thing we do is we take the data table and we tell nice thing about tables is you can work with a whole column, just as if it was a single variable. So I can say data table, use this column, and we'll call that our time column. Use this column and call that our flux column. We pass that to the light curve program, and that creates a light curve object, which we then pass to Pyriad. And now we have Pyriad. And when we run it, it comes up with 4 tabs. First one is the time series. So you can see here, these are all the data over a period of about 3 months. Each is just a little line because, of course, there's only sort of 2 or 3 hours in the month. But we can zoom in. You just do a little box, and there's one night's data, and it automatically scales everything and keeps it all pretty for us. The next tab is called the periodogram table. So basically what it's done is it's taken all the data and phased it together to see how well it fits a curve. If you pick the wrong period, it ends up with a complete mess and very low power. But if it's a curve that all the curves line up to all look the same, you end up with a nice strong signal. And so what this has done is it's gone through and it's done this for tens of thousands of frequencies. It takes like a second. And it's done this for tens of thousands of frequencies, measured all their power, told me what's the strongest signal. This is in microhertz, which is a really useful unit. And its amplitude, and marked it on the graph. So again, we can zoom in and you can see that there's a lot of extra detail in here. That's mostly because I'm taking data every single night or every second night or something. So a lot of this data, you can shift it by, 1 cycle per day, and you still get a fairly good signal, not quite as good. So anyway, so I'll just, if I accept that frequency, you can see I say add to solution and refine fit, and it adds that to my computer model of the light curve, and instantaneously comes back and says, this is the second strongest frequency with this amplitude, and I can just click add to solution, and it will go on. But having added that first frequency, all I get is a sine wave, pure sine wave. But you can see it already is explaining a lot of the variation in my light curve. The peaks are where they should be, and the minimum, so it's not perfect, but the next tab is the signals, and it tells us all the various frequencies that we've already included in our model. So there's our 109.9, tells us that the error on that is about thousandths, 2,000ths of a microhertz, and so forth. And I can also, and it also gives me the next frequency to add and its amplitude. I can add it to the solution. I can refine the fit. If I don't like it after all, I can delete one. So here I've added the second frequency at 131.7 microhertz. And you can see that just with two frequencies, boom, this is looking really nice now. Clearly, we've got a bit of an error down at the minimum here, and it's a bit off the mark at the maximum. But I can just click add to solution, refine fit, add to, every time you do refine fit, it takes all the frequencies, all the amplitudes, recalculates them all, but all as a bunch. So it gives you a better fit. So I end up with a whole bunch of frequencies. But in theory, I could just, I could keep doing this ad infinitum, but clearly there's a lot of noise in here. And so one of the things the program will actually do is it looks at the noise at all the different places, and then it tells you anything below this red line is noise and should probably be ignored. Anything above that is probably useful information. So now I know when to stop. So I go through and I add 8 different frequencies, and I end up with something that clearly fits really well. There's some discrepant measurements there that, but it's clearly fitting the curve very well. So then I can just say print out the fit values. So there's the table. I can see what it looks like, and I can write it to a disk file, and then I can read it in somewhere else and play with it. So one interesting thing here is this is 3 months of data, 4,000 observation points, frequency of about 110 microhertz to an error of 0.3 thousandths of a microhertz. This is like 1 part in 300,000 or something. That's amazing. Some of these down here are about 10 times the error, but these are variations on the light curve of like a couple of thousandths of a magnitude. So to get that kind of accuracy is really pleasing. So the first 2 we got in, we label those as F0 and F1, and then we start looking at all these other frequencies. What do they mean? Well, it turns out that this one is the sum of those 2. This one is twice that one. This one is F1 minus F0. So these are all basically like harmonics, kind of, that you think of a sine wave versus the sound of a violin. There's a lot more detail, but it's still the same basic frequency. So what does all this mean? I tried to find stuff that show the pulsation of a star. So this is actually organ pipes, but you have to think of it as the red line. Let's see, the blue box is basically the upper levels of the star. So the star is at about 40,000 degrees Kelvin at the bottom of this layer, and this is sort of the surface of the star. And what's happening is down at the 40,000 degree level, the star is not moving. All the stuff above that is expanding and contracting. So the distance between the pink lines is a measure of how far the star is moving. Not moving down here, it's moving quite a lot out near the surface. But you can also get cases where the star has a node in the middle. So it's actually in the middle or the bottom of that layer, it's moving in one direction. At the top of the layer, it's moving in the opposite direction. So the two are kind of moving out of phase with each other. And because the wavelength is shorter, it does it faster. And then you can also get a situation where you have two nodes. And this is what gives you when you have an organ pipe, you can get different notes out of the same pipe. And in this case, we get different frequencies out of the star. So one of the interesting things about the stars is a given type of star, like a high amplitude Delta Scuti star, they're all relatively similar. They all have the same physics. And so the ratios between those different frequencies are always the same. So in our star, the fundamental and the second one, about 84%. Now, normally in a star like this, you have the fundamental frequency where the whole layer is moving together. And then you have what's called the first overtone, where there's the two layers moving in opposition to each other. And the difference in frequency or period is 78%, which doesn't match our 84%. So then we look at the second overtone, where there's now three sort of sublayers in the outer part of the star pulsating at different frequencies. And the ratios are 61% or 78% based on like the second overtone versus the fundamental, or the second overtone versus the first overtone, 78%. Still doesn't match. So we look at the third overtone. So now we've got four sublayers in the outer part of the star, all moving in opposite directions, and three layers of the star, which are all moving at the same time as the four layers are moving. The three layers are moving, and this thing is all superimposed on each other, and that gives us the 84%. So what we've found is that this star actually has three layers that are moving, and simultaneously superimposed on top of that are four layers which are moving at different frequencies. So as far as I know, this is the only star, I've been doing a lot of looking, this is the only star we know that does this. So I've sent this data off to a researcher at Los Alamos National Laboratory, and she and her team are running it through, they're doing numerical modeling, like stellar modeling, to try and see if they can get a computer model of a star to actually pulsate in these frequencies. Now, one of the things you might say, gee, Rick, I don't have 4,000 observations of a star, or you might not even want to do all these observations, but you can actually download that kind of data. The All-Sky Automated Survey for Supernova it does the whole sky sort of every couple of nights, thousands of data points for literally millions of stars, and you can just go and download any of the data. It's all freely available, and plug it through the same analysis I've just done. It's pretty good data. It's sort of maybe 1/100th of a magnitude, a little bit better than that, only every couple of nights observing. Kepler was the original exoplanet search satellite, which observed every minute or so for years. So if you want astonishingly good data. Like this is down to like 20 micromagnitudes accuracy. This is, to work with this data is just amazing. You do these curves and all your data points fit better than the thickness of the line on your graph. It's perfect. TESS is almost as good as Kepler. The big problem with TESS is that it only views a given strip of the sky for a month, and then it moves on to a different strip. And then as it works its way around, eventually it comes back to doing the same strips again. So you do get sort of a month, and then a year later or something, another month, which does also give you very accurate timing on everything. And the magnitudes are very good. So it's great data to work with. And what I've been doing is Kepler only covers a small area between Lyra and Cygnus. I can't remember what, but you know, sort of like a small telescope kind of field of view. TESS does these strips right from the North Pole to the equator, and it does them. So the whole sky is covered by TESS. And so I can, almost any star that I observe, I can download their data as well, which means I've got, you know, an extended run. So I've got even more data. And that's all I have. Ooh, everybody's
right.
confused. Do we have any questions? Yes. Yes. And it matches just bang on, except where, you know, I mean, mine isn't as good as theirs, as the test data, but it meets. Yeah. Yeah.
How did you choose that star?
That's a good question. Yeah.
So the question is,
Basically,
how did you choose that
if you go to the AVSO, the American Association of Variable Star Observers, they have the variable star index, and it's a database of, I can't remember, millions of variable stars. And so you can, one of the things you can do with it is you can say, I want to look at a certain type of star, and then it will just give you a list of all the stars of that type. And so, you know, it's a list of thousands of heads, stars. And then I filter that based on what's accessible in my sky, the time of year and stuff. And then I pick, you know, the right magnitudes. And is it a reasonable brightness for me to observe and so forth. And then sometimes I will go like to the ASAS data or the test data, because one thing you'll find is that if a variable star has a single period, they, you know, ASAS gives you a nice tight light curve, boom, 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 all, you know, and it looks great. If it's got multiple periods, then it looks like that blue rope that I gave you. So if you go and look at the ASAS data and it's a big, thick, fuzzy curve, you know there's interesting stuff going on there. So it's a star worth observing. But as far as the fact that this is a third and fourth overtone pulsator, I hadn't a clue. So, all right, thank you.
Yeah, man. Don't forget the microphones.
Okay, Malcolm, are you ready to present?
Sure. You hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right, so I'll do the share thing. Okay. So I'll begin. I'll start off quickly with a little bit of a fallen stars weather forecast, because Kim thinks that I'm freaking out, but it's okay. It's okay. We're going to be all right. But I do want to point out that if you ever want to go to fallen stars, this is the time to go. Look at Friday's forecast. I mean, does it get any better than that? But the thing that we have to keep in mind for Saturday, if I click on the cloud cover map, is we're really close to the edge of this thing. And if Lee decides to go just a little bit to the west, it's something to watch. That's all. So forecast looks great. hopefully it's right, but Friday at least should be fantastic. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about Starfest this year. I have some photos here and a couple of videos. And so Starfest was weather-wise, but for those that haven't heard of Starfest, Starfest is a star party. It's held in August every year. It's hosted by the North York Astronomical Association out of Toronto. And it's been running since mid-80s. So this was the 40th Starfest, and we had a little bit of a celebration along those lines. But here's a trailer load of stuff going up to Starfest, and what's in that trailer? Way in the back, it's full of door prizes. Lots of door prizes. We had over $15,000 worth of door prizes this year. There's no door prizes in there. That's the back of my car. I got up there on Monday. That's my setup over here. Of note, this would be Dave Cotterill's setup over here, and basically the place was empty on Monday. Get up there early. The team starts to set things up on Tuesday, and the tent arrives and things like that. But you know, you can see it's starting to fill in a little bit. First year for me, I took a dining tent with me. I found it was a wonderful thing to have on Wednesday night. I was sitting in my dining tent here with the picnic bench and my telescope over here, had my iPad wirelessly connected. I had no mosquitoes bothering me. It was wonderful. I'm going to do it again sometime. The park starts to fill out. I think this is also on Wednesday. Wednesday, I would say, was probably the clearest night. Friday was pretty good too. You know, the later into the week, closer to the weekend, the more people show up, more telescopes are out there, more tents, more trailers. We had 650 attendees this year total, approximately. I'll say that is unofficial, but likely our attendance is in that ballpark. And last year it was about 600, so a little bit more. But the Thursday weather put a damper on things. A serious squall line, like a really serious squall line, went through. There's Attila. He sold his telescope to, I believe, the Hamilton. Mark or Roger, you can confirm. I think
he donated it to the Hamilton Center.
Sorry, yes, donated. At the Hamilton Center as opposed to Hamilton Amateur Astronomers, right?
That's correct.
And this was the sky getting dark, and my telescope, so to speak, I call it a telescope. It's really a mount with a DSLR lens and a CMOS camera on the back, but getting ready to image. And there we are again. This is dawn, and just before sunrise, after a night of imaging. You can see my tent's doing pretty well there. Not so much in this picture. That squall line, this is in the afternoon before the squall even hit. The winds were just, you can see this guy's tent over here is pretty much flattened. The wind was just ridiculous. And eventually the wind combined with rain, and it was nasty. But Friday turned out to be a beautiful night. Everything was okay. What's that? No. We had talks at Starfest this year that went back to sort of what we call normal. Last year was a partial event, our first event out of COVID. And we just decided not to have a program in the rec hall last year. We kept it simple. Last year, we didn't have a dinner last year. We had a trimmed down speaker program in the main tent, and that was it. But this year we went completely back to normal. So we had the catered buffet, or the buffet banquet on Saturday night, and speakers in the rec hall. And in this case, that was Ryan Fraser giving a talk on PixInsight, and it was a 2-hour workshop. So we had 3 2-hour workshops in there. And as I say, the sky was really nice on a couple of nights. This was the Milky Way with a telescope there, and that, what is it, 14-foot ladder, I'm guessing. This is some of the data that I captured at Starfest and before. This North American Nebula project took me about 3 months to actually get all the data to come up with an image because of all the smoke and lack of clear nights. But I got the, I'm pretty sure it was the RGB for the stars at Starfest. Of course, at Starfest, you see lots of old friends. There's Mark Fitkin, there's his wife, Karen. You can see the fields are really filling in now. This is probably by Friday or probably Friday, or Friday or Saturday, I can't remember now, but lots of telescopes and tents everywhere. It was great. The vibe was really good. There were lots of newcomers. I would guess that 15% maybe of our attendance this year were first time and young people, lots of young people. There's Jamie Flynn giving a talk on using Nina, and we had the vendors there as well. Astronomy Plus, they were one of our keynote sponsors. And there's Ryan and his wife, and the swap table. Swap table is always good. We have a basketball court, set up the tables and chairs, and a couple of hundred people show up for the swap table to either pick something up or unload something. And while I was there, we saw Steve, and he had some things for sale there as well. This was what caught my eye here was the color T-shirt. I don't actually know this gentleman, but maybe some of you do. Swap table. This is basically what it is. You put your stuff out on the table. You stand on one side and try to sell to the guy on the other side of the table. I love this sign: danger, overhead, work in progress. And there's Fred Espenak, one of the speakers, and he spoke on the 2024 eclipse and also how to photograph eclipses. Gave us some great advice on preparing for the great eclipse of next year, which we are on the path of totality for, which I think was already mentioned tonight. And that's it. So one more thing. I want to show you this video. There are two angles of it. It's about a minute. Hopefully the audio comes through okay. This is what I call a Starfest moment. Can you hear it okay?
A little quiet.
The first prize is a Viva Lab 2W1 smart telescope. So this is a smart telescope that also might be, it could be for someone just getting into the hobby. It has a smart telescope which has all the go-to digital camera built into it. So it's good for photography, and comes with an app that runs on Android, iOS, and Windows.
How come Peggy's at the front of the room already? We lost the audio, Malcolm.
She was so excited.
Whoops.
So can you guys hear that?
No, we missed most of the audio.
No, that's too bad.
It's online though, right?
Yeah, this is YouTube. It's on Telescope Canada's website. And then the last thing I was going to show it to you in another, have another angle of it, but if you can't hear the audio, I guess that's pointless. Correct?
It was very, very quiet.
Let's try this one. Let's just see if this one's better. It's a different source. This time it's from the winner's perspective. She just happened to have her phone filming at the time.
And then he's obviously or he is with the action work on the. Oh, I see. Okay. Oh, so I lay him out. That's all he does. But you have to
We're
be
looking
here.
at something else.
You could leave here.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's, there's audio coming in from other sources, so
We're trying to kill it, but it's not working.
yeah, it doesn't matter. I'll move on.
Okay.
So anyway, it was quite a night. All the door prizes were basically like well received, but this particular winner, the enthusiasm and the joy in that person's reaction was just priceless. I just want to give you a quick look at some of the winners of the astrophotography competition. In this year, we had a keynote an astrophotography sponsor, specifically Skywatcher USA, and they donated just for the astrophotography prizes, thousands and thousands of dollars worth of prizes. I don't know off the top of my head what all of the stuff was, but this is our imager of the year. These 4 images submitted by Andrea Jerome, and this is one of her images, the solar system image of Comet C2 2022 E3ZBF. You got to see this time lapse she did of a solar flare. It's about 30 seconds long. I still hear the audio from.
I think we just got we took care of it.
Okay. So that's a magnificent time lapse, really, of a solar flare there. This is one of her wide field landscapes, the winter Milky Way and zodiacal light and the mountains. This is the winner of the solar system category. We have an ISS transiting the moon image, which is absolutely gorgeous. This is another of the prize winners, the eclipse in CN Tower, solar system image of the sun from Ben Law, a sequence of the Jupiter-Venus conjunction. This is the deep sky winner from Dave Robitaille, the Pleiades. We have a category for most improved, and this is basically a new category this year. So we took scores from last year versus this year for a couple of, we had 2 winners for the most improved, and they won a Skywatcher Star Adventure. Kate Beecroft, lots of young ladies and women participating in astrophotography and submitting images to Starfest. The numbers reflected something like 16 participants, female participants, versus 5 or 10 years ago, maybe 1. I think Carrie Ann Leckie Hepburn was the lone soul back then, and now there are many ladies submitting. And as you saw, we had Andrea was the imager of the year, and Ryan Fraser's bubble image was second place. Sean Nielsen, Dark Shark, and Stephen Jackson was also an award winner for most improved.
I think somebody might be in the audience.
Is he on?
He's here.
Oh, yay! Congratulations. So anyway, that's my report about Starfest. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Malcolm.
Thank you, Malcolm. It's excellent. So are the specs for all of these images someplace?
I beg your pardon?
Are the specs for the images someplace, like the solar image that you had of the filament?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No. But if it was Andrea's image, you can reach out to her on Facebook. I'm sure she'd be able to help you out, find out what the settings were.
Okay. Thanks. Excellent. We're trying to get her for next year. Yeah. Okay, excellent. Thank you, everybody. We're going to have a 5-minute break. So everybody be back online 8:40 p.m. and we'll see you then. Got it. All right. Okay, so next we're going to have Rick Wagner come up and
Flag there.
again, and talk to us about what's up in the sky.
You gonna give him your mic?
Record on yours as well.
Yep. You want me to bring it up for you?
Yeah, I'll let you find it. Oh, there's Kathy. Hi, Kathy.
Sky this month.
Yeah, could be the one.
Okay, first we have to share it. Share. Sky this month. Slide. Show. Okay, we should be full screen to everybody.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yes, September 2023. Welcome to the new year of astronomy. Social events in the local area, 16th of September, and this is ignoring fallen stars, of course, which we're all going to, so I don't have to tell you about that. 16th of September, the Observatory Open House at Queens. 21st of September, Jim Peebles, everybody knows Jim Peebles, Nobel Prize winning cosmologist, wrote physical cosmology and stuff. I'm going to take my copy along, get it autographed. So on the 21st, he's giving a presentation in the evening, sort of a public thing, at the Isabel Bader Center. And then on the 22nd, which is the Friday, I think, he's giving a talk to the department. So that'll be sort of more research level. 11th of October is our next meeting. AAVSO webinars on 7th of October. There will be another how-to webinar. They haven't decided what its content is going to be yet. Lennox and Addington Deep Sky Viewing Area, the 9th. That's past. Oh dear. Okay, 15th or 16th of September, laser guided sky tour. We're all going to be gone. 23rd of September, up close with the moon. They do moon tours and viewing. North Frontenac, Facebook only. I don't have Facebook, so we don't go there anymore. September, Hours of Darkness. We are coming up to the equinox. And so you can see there's a nice line, almost straight line between daylight and good. What else can I say? Sun's altitude at noon is dropping 50 degrees down to 42. So the solar won't be as good.
Question.
The actually 16,
Yeah.
and Guy Mason will be giving the talk.
Oh,
But it's on
okay.
Facebook, so we don't know that.
That's right. So we're not going. Sky events for September, starting on the 12th of September or so, in the morning sky, you'll be able to see the zodiacal light, big triangular faint glow up from the dawn horizon. 14th of September is the new moon. Daytime occultation of Mars by the moon on the 16th. It's only 20 degrees from the sun. It's in full daylight. I don't think anybody's going to see it. But, you know, like people who have infrared filters and an IR sensitive camera could, you know, maybe give it a try. 19th of September, Venus is at its greatest illuminated extent. As it gets further away, it's come back into the dawn sky, and so it's getting smaller, but it's also getting a more illuminated crescent, and so those two things balance on the 19th when it's at its brightest magnitude. Neptune opposition on the 19th of September. Mercury is at its greatest elongation west in the dawn sky, so that's when it's highest above the horizon, sort of in civil twilight or before civil twilight. That's its best dawn apparition this year. 22nd of September, first quarter moon. The equinox on the 23rd. 29th, full moon. Then in early October, up to our next meeting, last quarter moon on the 6th. South Torrid meteor showers. maximum was on the 10th. That's a very minor shower, like 5 or something zenithal hourly rate. And just after our next meeting, that's why I'm mentioning it now, because it's close, partial solar eclipse, about 30% from our area. Queens is doing some stuff. They are looking for some volunteers if people aren't committed to trying to do it all on their own, sort of, if you want to practice for the big one next year. Something new I've added this year. What are the major planets doing? So Mars at magnitude 1.7, it's getting kind of dim. It's very, very low in the western sky after sunset. Saturn is well up in the southeast by the end of twilight. Transits before midnight. So it's prime imaging time. It's still way south of the equator, so it's never gets very good.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Well up 20 degrees of altitude.
As well as it gets.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Least lowest or something. These are my images from a few years ago and even a few more years ago. Best image I've got of Neptune. Magnitude 7.8, rises at sunset, transits shortly after midnight. Jupiter, magnitude minus 2.7, is in the east-northeast, rising during twilight, and it's well up before twilight begins. So, it's like 60 degrees high. This is about as what did I do? I touched something. All right. Uranus, following Jupiter by about a half an hour. Transits about 5 o'clock in the morning, and it's actually 63 degrees high. So maybe I'll get a good picture for here. Venus at minus 4.8. I'm amazed. I go out canoeing every morning before sunrise, and it's like I've been doing this every day, and then one day I look over and there's Venus. Holy cow. It's astonishing. And I don't know where it came from, because it's like it just appeared. But anyway, it's well up, and it's really bright, really beautiful. And of course, oops, that should be a W. On the 22nd, best dawn apparition of the year. Small bodies. An occultation by Bennu. Everybody's heard of Bennu?
Whoop, whoop. So many rocks.
Yeah. 2nd of October, minor planet 29 Amphitrite is at opposition at magnitude 8.7. So the Bennu occultation is really of minimal interest to us, I'm afraid, except for Mark, who is going to be in, hopefully he'll be still in Georgetown on the 25th of September, because the path of the shadow is just south of Georgetown. So it's interesting to one person, but the other thing that I really found interesting is that if we zoom in using a different website, we zoom in on the path. Now, what this next, I don't want to spoil the effect. There's a green line is the center line of where the shadow is going to travel. Then there's a pair of blue lines which show the width of the shadow. And then there's a pair of red lines which show the one standard deviation likelihood error for where the path is going to be. And we're normally used to seeing these things. This is the path of Bennu. These are suburban neighborhoods. This is like, the whole path is like 2 blocks wide, and the whole error path is like half a kilometer or something, or a couple of kilometers, which just astonishes me.
Nice.
But that's because they've been there and visited it.
And mapped it, and photographed it, and counted each one of the millions.
So they know
of rocks.
exactly, almost exactly where it is. So this I can't remember what town it is, but it's just, yeah, Milton, that's right. And it's just southeast of Georgetown. So like, I don't know, 10-minute drive for Mark after his dental appointment. Any questions?
Sample return. Sample return.
Oh, waiting for FedEx. I shouldn't say that. I ordered, I have the Hank scope, and it gets hot in there because normally my observatories, I put a double shell on. So there's an air gap, so it stays cool inside. This is such a teeny little thing. It doesn't have that. It's just walls and a roof. And it gets hot inside. So I put little louvers at the bottom of the doors on the south side and high up on the wall on the north side. Now, give some ventilation. Well, it doesn't give any ventilation worth a darn. And so Mark was over and looked at it and said, oh, well, you should just add a couple of fans and a solar panel. So I rummaged around in my junk box, found 2 computer fans, screwed them in. And just the other day, I ordered a 10-watt solar panel from Renogy, I think it's called. And it arrived 2 days later. So by FedEx. So FedEx did a good job. So
Can I just ask a question?
absolutely, Bruce.
Well, I was just wondering about the recent comet. Maybe somebody talked about this already and you didn't hear it, but
No, there's been no mention of the
I
comet.
saw an email coming out from Kim about that she had seen it or something.
Yeah.
There was discussion at dinner, so all of you who did not come to dinner, you're just out of luck.
And
Oh,
all
sorry.
of you who are at the wrong end of the table are all out of luck.
A synopsis?
The synopsis of what was said at dinner?
Just you.
I saw it on the 28th. I saw it on August 28th, and it was in the low east northeast, and it was just a little fuzz ball. And then, of course, a week later, we ended up with the cloud, and I could not find it again. And it was getting lower in the east northeast.
Mhm.
It's getting lower. It's getting closer to the sun.
It was
And of
very
course,
low.
And of course, those who are in lower states and who are on high mountaintops get to see this lovely comet with a tail.
Mhm.
And we don't get to see that. We have to wait for it to swing around the sun and see it in the nighttime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's there. It's a record shot.
So bright twilight, and that's what I put up on the front lawn, and I thought, oh, just for a lark, I'll send my telescope over to it. Looked at my pictures, and that place chuckle in this white background, there is a pink comet in there too, so. Yeah.
It exists.
It's there, and I saw it visually with my eyes, but not there, so
Mhm.
that's all I
Yeah.
got. But my comet-
It's
Yeah, I stayed in school. That's why we- Yeah.
oh. All righty, I'll leave it there.
Pictures or it didn't happen.
Yeah, if there's no pictures, it didn't happen.
Yeah. I got a sketch. That's good enough. Okay, so we're going to move on to our observing reports. So let us try this online.
Okay, I'm gonna turn the lights up.
Okay, Kathy, welcome. Anything to observe? Anything to note?
Me? I tried for the comet a number of mornings, but it was very, very low. Did some pictures, couldn't get it to show up. It was just too low. So,
Okay.
but I've enjoyed seeing the pictures online.
Yes, it is quite the comet with quite the tail.
Hmm.
It is very pretty. Okay, next up. Jeff. You have anything that you want to report?
No, sorry, nothing for me.
No? Are you getting out and doing solar?
Yeah, tried to. Nothing, nothing spectacular. I was hoping I'd have my double stack filter by now, but it hasn't come in yet.
Ah. Well, let us know when you get it. I want to
Yep.
see some pictures. Okay, Kevin Winkoff, welcome.
Thank you. I don't have any real spectacular observing, stories. I took my binoculars out multiple times. It's so cloudy and smoky. In the last 3 months, it was hard, but I do have a subjective connection to astronomy. A little story. We took our old camper van out to Gaspé, and to prepare for the trip felt subjectively like the Artemis moon, like launch to the moon, because it took so much preparation. So I feel a little bit like the people preparing for that when I was fixing the old camper van and getting the technology right, inverters and all the stuff that goes into it. And then when we got to Gaspé, it started to feel a bit like Apollo 13, because the front wheel was falling off of the camper van. The control arm got loose and everything was shaking, and we have a problem. It was actually quite frightening, and we're almost, marooned, circling Gaspé infinitely. But we got back, and I got a little bit of observing with the binoculars, but not much. So that's all. It just felt like those sort of crazy preparation and problem solving experiences. And oh yeah, and I got a couple months ago, got the spiral stairs up to this tall observatory and did some landscaping, and it's a slow project. So it's getting there. That's all.
Stairway to heaven.
That's right.
Okay. Bruce Elliott, anything else that you observed?
Well, we have our next door neighbor actually is in her 90s, and she's really she had been trying to, hearing about the moon and all that. She was trying to find it from her window, and it was so exciting actually to see her when she could really see the moon, and it was full moon. It came up, and it was just wonderful experience. But other than that, I don't really have too much more to share. I did really enjoy the outreach I already spoke about.
Hey.
Hey, thanks, Bruce.
Yeah.
Okay, Malcolm.
Well, it's getting better. There have been a couple of astrophotography sessions recently. I've got a new project right now. It's the double cluster and Heart and Soul, and the next 3 or 4 nights, it might clear tonight. So if starting tonight, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, I mean, it's going to be good. When was the last time we had a good, clear, smokeless new moon run? Right? Like, was it a year ago? I don't
2014.
Yeah, right. So I think it's more I'm looking forward to what I'm going to be doing than what I've done. Put it that way.
Okay. All right. Now keep an eye on that weather then. Okay, Peter Hutchinson.
Nothing to share tonight, but I'm looking for some help at Fallen Stars. I'll be there on the weekend.
All right.
All right.
Great. We'll see you there. Okay, up next. Peter Janicki. Welcome. AJ?
Don't think he's there.
I'm here. Sorry, I just had something covering up my unmute button. How you doing?
Good, you?
Pretty much terrific, I think.
Anything that you've been observing?
Oh gosh, no. Observing has been a bad year for me. Although I did see that comet back in February when we were down in Arizona, but only with binoculars.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Excellent. So how's it going up there in London?
Well, it goes. We have quite a few activities and not nearly enough volunteers.
Yeah.
But that's just me complaining.
No, that's the way it is.
Is that Peter sitting in our
That's the way it
audience?
is in all the centers. Nice rocket there you've got.
Yeah, I get that a lot.
Oh, it's great to see you, Peter.
Yeah, it's nice to be here. Thanks for the invite.
You're welcome. Rosemary.
Hi. Probably about the only thing recently. It was about a week or so ago. I posted one picture to Facebook as the sparklies. I was just heading for bed and looked out the window and I thought, what's that flashing way off to the south? And here there was a big thundercloud that was going up the St. Lawrence River, and it was just over the tree line, and the lightning was lighting up this cloud, and it was clear above. So I took some pictures of Sagittarius and Capricornus coming around, and I went down to the dock and I was over on the beach and stuff, and I was wishing that the cloud would be a bit higher and a bit closer, but I did get some nice shots of the cloud getting lit up with actual clear sky and stars above it. So that's about the only exciting thing. When Carrie's dragged me out at night, it's been I was out early in the morning and I was looking around and there was always clouds or haziness where the comet was supposed to be, so I never did get out. And then I'm down in this valley, so anything to the north and east, I'm just not going to see anyway. But there's been few clear nights, and then when there's been real clear nights, I've been working. I've been too tired to get out in the evening and do anything with it. So I'm hoping this weekend that we do get some clear weather with no moon, because I haven't had that camera out doing any long exposures, so I'm hoping to do that. But the only time I've had it out was for that storm cloud there, and that's about it.
Okay, thanks, Rosemary. Great. Hey, we'll go around the room. Michael. Oh, okay. We're going to, okay, sorry. We're going to start just to be different. Susan.
Okay, I put in a new pier in the observatory and made some upgrades, and I attempted to get everything lined up a few nights ago, but it was one of those really hot nights when it was kind of clear and it looked like I should be able to do something, and my glasses were completely fogged up, and I was sweating into them. And so I think I have my finder lined up, and that's about as much success as I'd had. And like Roger, the scope had been in the box and I was anxious to get it out there and get going, and it was a disappointment, but the season's changing and it's going to be a lot better skies.
Excellent.
Tell us stories about the new wheels and rails and WD-40.
Oh, it's great. So I took off the old wheels, the rubber wheels. I had 4 of these. They're about 3-inch wheels, and they were very, very nice. The roof rolled very nicely, very smooth, nice and quiet. But I know there's a fair bit of inertia to get it moving. So I decided before I get too decrepit that I should switch to the steel rails and the inverted V wheels. So David and I did that, and we both have all of our fingers still, raising the roof and working underneath and everything. when I built the observatory, I really made it to last. So we were unable to remove the old wheels. We had to actually take the reciprocating saw and cut the steel, but the fixture is still in the wood. The lock washers are ground right into the wood, and nothing was coming out. So anyway, but everything works really nicely, and it's quite smooth and getting smoother all the time. And yeah, it's going to be very nice. Anyway.
Not too much to report. Doing a little bit of solar, trying to get the imaging system sorted out, troubleshoot a few bugs on the user interface, and sort out the new observatory arrangement, and looking forward to some construction going on for the rest of the yard.
Awesome.
I took the grandkids out at their house in Kingston just before they went back to school, and we successfully looked at the moon. Oh, the grandkids are 3 and 6. She'll be 7 in 2 weeks. The older of the two. The 3-year-old was looking through the wrong end of any scope he could. Quite enjoyed the size of his eye when he saw it in one of the mirrors. That was his big thrill. And I could see Saturn was behind all the houses, so we couldn't actually look at it. But I have seen Saturn in the new scope I won, and that was kind of nice to find it. I do. There are things about the Starfinder thing that are really effective for someone who wants to learn the sky, because you attach your phone to it and it directs you to how to move the scope to where the thing that you want to look at. Yes, I won that at Starfest. Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I went down cheering. I was the one before on Malcolm's video. But anyway, so I've had it out. I have to troubleshoot I have to realign the phone every time I set it up, and I keep forgetting to do that because it's close to where it needs to be, and not. But anyway, so once I get that interface worked, that should be good, and it'll work. You can pick the scope up and move it to wherever you are in the yard. If you've got a clear space, you don't have to leave it in one spot, and it reads the sky above and says, "Oh, just a second, this is where this is," and gives you new arrows. So that was kind of fun.
Right. You ready?
So back early August, Rosemary and I went off to Elbow Lake to do some outreach for Queen's University. They have one of their environmental weekends where people stay in the cabins. Rosemary gave a great talk to everybody while it was thinking about getting dark, and then we headed out and did some observing with the people that were there. And there was an Arabic family there with their 7-year-old daughter who was absolutely glued to the eyepiece. I mean, a lot of 7-year-olds can never even find the view through an eyepiece. This kid it's like her eye sucked right onto the eyepiece, and she was so amazed. She would look through the eyepiece and then at her father, because she didn't speak any English, and he would push her away a little so somebody else could look, and as soon as the other person stepped out of the way, she was back on the eyepiece. And it was like that for 2 hours. Half a dozen deep sky objects, Albireo, even just a bright star, just looking at Altair because it was the first thing we could see through the telescope. And she just, wow. And it just made the whole trip worthwhile. A week later, Mark Delorier and I and Gary Boyle from Ottawa were at Newborough Locks and did outreach for Parks Canada. They have learn to camp weekends for people who haven't camped before. And so we each brought our telescopes, and Gary gave an hour-long talk about all aspects of amateur astronomy and all kinds of stuff, really good stuff. And then we showed people things, deep sky objects. Saturn finally rose above the trees. I was hopping around the field trying to find cracks in the trees so that I could show kids the moon as it was setting, and we'd get it in place. 2 kids would get a look and then it would disappear. So we'd hump around the field again. At home, for the past month or so, I've been dedicating the Hank scope entirely to pretty pictures. So I'm trying to do a mosaic of like just a 2-panel mosaic of M33, a couple of other things, a really dim deep sky object that I'm hoping is going to turn out soon. And tomorrow morning, I hope I'm going to start a 16-panel mosaic of M31, try and get it nice and deep. Oh, and the other thing, there's a picture on the computer. If Kevin can bring that up, I'm building an all sky camera. Nope, that's the one. So this is an ASI 678 MC camera, color camera, and excuse me. It has very high IR sensitivity, and so when you just take normal pictures with it, the trees all turn out pink, and the IR, which is basically it has equal sensitivity in all the color channels, and so it completely washes out the colors. It seems to overexpose the images and stuff, so I ordered you can replace the little protective window in the camera with an UV IR cut filter. And so I installed that and I stuck it out, and I have it mounted in the observatory right now temporarily while I get things working. And it cleared off unexpectedly a couple of nights ago. So I quick rolled the roof off the observatory and just left it for the night. And that's what happened at about 2:30 in the morning. Enormous bolide, just, yeah, it was, I wish I'd seen that one. So that's what I've been doing for the past month or so.
Okay. Jeanette.
Well, I observed the full moon at the end of August. I guess it was the 2nd full moon of the month. So super blue moon. That's about all.
Well, I guess the last time I did any visual observing was at Starfest with my husband's 16-inch Dob. Would we get one night on that? One night, and a little bit of frustration with neighbors that had too many lights on. But other than that, it was pretty great. And as far as imaging goes, I do that any chance I can get. If the sky is clear, I'll image. Even if it's crappy skies, I'll image and deal with whatever. Because you never know. You get little breaks in the clouds or little breaks in the transparency, where it finally improves. So I just deal with all that in the morning because we are at least fully automated. Set it up on the computer, you can press a button to unroll the roof and, get everything going and set it all up and just deal with all the data in the morning. So and I think what the last real serious images I took were of the moon this past week. I got,
yeah, you did some nice pictures of the moon.
Waning gibbous, and then last quarter, and then waning crescent. So I'm hoping to get a waxing crescent and a waxing gibbous in a first quarter and a full moon. Because I'd like to do a composite where, the full moon's in the middle and then the phases around it. So there you go. Oh, and deep sky stuff I'm working on. I've got 15 hours on the Seahorse, and it's got the Bat Nebula, and I can't make out the squid yet because I think I need another 30 hours on that just to get that blue squid.
So another upgrade to our observatory, I added Wi-Fi to it. So now I can use the phone and close it. So if we go away somewhere and we get the sequence running and we need to close it, we can do that. My LX 200 10-inch, I got my Lunt solar scope mounted on top of that. And I'm still working out the bugs on getting the LX200 to operate properly remotely from inside the house. So if anybody has experience with an LX200 and how to run that, I'd be open to any advice, suggestions, help, that just to get that working properly. Because in the day it's been all right. I've been able to get some nice images of the sun, and actually I got a video of a solar flare on the sun. But I want to be able to do some, Jupiter, Saturn, some planetary stuff in the evenings and that. So that's kind of where I'm heading.
So the question about, just a minute, Brian, so no, you keep that. When you're imaging your sun and you're actually doing the processing, are you using IMPPG?
Yes, I am.
And how do you find that?
Great.
I use it for my
I
moon
find a
too.
lot of issues with that when you're trying to do the inverse to try to get the prominences.
Oh, really?
We need to have a talk about IMPPG.
Yeah, and I use it for my lunar just to align all the moons first before I put them into AutoStacker.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's been great that way. It's worked fine.
I think we also want to ask about your solutions for opening the roof, because a lot of us here would like to stay in pajamas.
Well, I can just tell you a little story about that roof.
So pictures and description, please.
Well,
I have put video. I haven't put the since I've added the Wi-Fi to it, but I do have YouTube videos of the building the observatory and then automating the roof.
and I couldn't get the roof open the other night.
Well, it's just a
Just saying.
sensor, just a sensor.
I see a top coming up.
And the other
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
is. the
October would be
confidence and the
lovely.
Ability to close everything without worrying where the scope is.
Yeah.
Unlike Roger, who has issues with the wall being in the wrong place already and not closing the roof.
Well, our roof,
For very much longer.
And with my setup personally, I just moved the observatory 45 degrees a couple months ago. And now I'm not sure if I can close it with the scope in any position at all or not. So it's
well,
gonna be
our
hard.
thing, the roof is too high.
Yeah.
The walls are high.
Too high. There's no such a thing. Too high.
The walls are too high.
Yeah, I gotta have that with
They are.
the observatory I use. The walls were too high. for
It's a
my
bit
scope.
too high. There's stuff that's kind of a bit lower that I'm sure I could reach, but because the wall is this high and I'm that close to the wall, I have to wait longer.
Yeah.
'Cause, you
Okay.
know,
So
some of
we'll-
us are short.
October, a talk in October?
Yeah.
Think about that. Think about. Okay, Brian.
Well, the last thing that the thing I'd like to mention is the Perseid meteor shower, which I shot, I guess it was on August the 13th. And I spoke about this at our meeting, 2 meetings ago, actually. And, with that, out of 1,000 images that I took, 14 of the images had meteor trails, and worked on that in Photoshop and had the final image, which I was fairly pleased with. So, that's the last thing that I did.
Excellent. Thank you. Keith.
I've done a few solar observations. That's about it. But the problem was that a few days we had were very, very hot. And I brought a few pictures. So
bring them on up.
Yeah, okay. So the problem was my observatory has got 6-foot walls. So I roll the roof off during the day. It gets really, really hot in there. These last heat wave we had. So if I take the mini tower outside, yeah, go to the first picture there. You'll see my roof there is off, but if I take the mini tower out with a solar scope, the ground is really uneven. So by the time you align it and level it, it's a pain in the neck. So I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put pads in the ground. Next picture, please. If you can find it. There. Now, the rock is about 10 inches down. So what I used is a 3-inch pipe with 3-inch caps. And I put it in the ground, sitting right on the rock. I leveled everything and aligned it. So now, when I take the scope out, I just plonk it on top there, and I don't have to align anything. It's perfectly aimed south, and it's perfectly level. Just to make sure, I put little divots in the top of the caps. If you can go to the next picture, you'll see the little divots. So the feet of the tripod just drop right in there. And I don't have to do anything. So whatever I aim at, I'm there. You can go to the next picture. You might see a close-up of it. And then the next one is the tripod sitting on it. And then the next 2 pictures after that has got the scopes and my sun shield. And all I got to do is just take it out there, plonk it on, and I just tell it to go to the sun, and I am there. Now, the other thing I mentioned last meeting is I had bought 2 red dot finder scopes to go on my lenses. If you go to the next picture, there's my 200 to 500 with the red dot finder scope mounted on it. If you go to the next picture, you'll get a different view of the same one. And now when I want to take a picture in a particular area, I just line up the red dot, and I know that what I want to take a picture of is in the field of view. The next shot is my 80 to 200. And I have 2 of these red dot scopes. And if next shot, you'll see a closer view of it. So that is what I was doing this summer. And this makes it real easy, because now you just aim at what you want, and I know that whatever it is in the field of view of the camera. So that's it.
Excellent.
So Keith, did you machine that L bracket?
No, I did. Well, I used the bracket that I found, and then I modified it to suit.
Okay. That's a nice looking setup.
Well, yeah, I have a lathe, I have a mill, and I have hands I can cut.
How many fingers do you have?
I got them all.
I have none of that.
What, no fingers? Oh, geez, sorry.
No lathe, no machine shop.
Oh, okay. Well,
Okay.
if I can help you out, let me know.
Thank you. Okay, Roger.
I think I've said enough for one meeting. So just to let you know, unlike the email I sent, maybe this time I can be brief. But I've just blown that one too, haven't I? Okay.
Tyler's our new member.
Hi, I'm new. Yeah, my name's Taylor, and I just moved here for school, and yeah, I'm hoping to learn about astronomy through all of you guys, and you are way above my level, so I'm sure I'll learn a lot. The only the only observing I've done is like the Northern Lights in February, but that's pretty much it.
Okay, thanks.
Amazing.
Elena.
This summer, we saw the Perseids, or I should say the people with me did, and I didn't, because I was always had my head down at that time, or, you know, looking in the wrong spot. But our family did, so it was a pretty exciting night. And that's
Yeah, I've nothing really to add to that, except to thank all the presenters for using the little microphone for my hearing. That was terrific, and I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Wonderful. Okay. So before we wrap up this evening, does anybody have anything else that they would like to bring up to discuss? In the room? Online? No? Okay, well, you can check us out at our website, kingston.rasc.ca. We're on Facebook under the RASC Kingston Center group. Check us out on YouTube. Tonight's talk will be up there the next 24 hours. or so. And if you're not a member of the RASC and you'd like to join us, go to secure.rasc.ca membership and join up. And we'll see you next month, October 11th, the 23rd, for our hybrid meeting. We're back in this room again at 7 p.m. And it's the official end of our meeting. Thank you all for coming, and you can have chit chat, or we'll see you all next month. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Oh, yeah.